Hello, welcome to this DCS A-18C tutorial video. Today we will cover the different HUD and helmet symbologies for your various air-to-air munitions. Before we begin with that, I do want to mention a shortcut to access the azimuth over elevation page that was not covered in the previous video. If your attack radar is your sensor of interest with the diamond, and only if your attack radar is on this right-hand page, we can press sensor control switch left, and it will bring up our azimuth over elevation page and make it sensor of interest soy with the diamond in the upper right. I will go ahead and put that back to EW. To start off, if we equip our AIM-120C AMRAAMs, signified by this AC6 at the bottom, I have 6 AIM-120Cs on my aircraft at this moment. Do this by utilizing your weapon select switch. You will see, without a lock, this large dashed circle, also repeated in our helmet. This large dashed circle tells us that if we fire a missile right now without an aircraft locked, we will fire our missile in what is called Mad Dog. This means that when we fire our missile, it will go active immediately off the rail. So it will go after the first target it sees within this circle or near it. This is not something that you should use often, and if you do use it, you need to be careful. It will not care if it goes after a friendly, enemy, what have you. It will go after the first aircraft it sees after it goes off the rail. This X through the AC6 down at the bottom signifies that our plane isn't safe, so we cannot fire. If I arm our plane, the X goes away, and we now have the ability to launch the missile. An easy way to remember about this dotted circle is it says visual. It will go after the first thing it sees visually as soon as it comes off the rail. Alright, let's go ahead and lock a target and start talking about what all the locked symbology means. So now I have a target locked. The first thing I'll point out, in our HUD, we have an arrow pointing to a flashing rectangle, also repeated in our helmet. You should recognize this arrow from the last tutorial with the degrees off our bore of the target. This arrow signifies the target is in the direction of the arrow, and the flashing box means that the target is not able to be seen by our helmet or our HUD. If we move our helmet over, we will see it becomes a solid box. That means we can see the target with our helmet. Similarly, if we move our plane over, the flashing box will become solid, showing that we can see it on our HUD. On this HUD symbology, let's start with these triangles. This bottom triangle, everything is also repeated on our helmet. The bottom triangle here signifies the maximum range we can launch our missile from. This intermediate triangle signifies a distance that our missile has the highest chance of hitting. This upper triangle signifies the minimum range we can launch our missile. So you see this tick counting down? That is our ranging queue. So it is beyond the maximum range, now past the kill range, and approaching the minimum firing range. Once again, it is all repeated in our helmet. So this tick will start up here and then wind its way down. When it passes the bottom triangle, you will be able to fire your missile. When it passes the second triangle, you are within a high probability kill zone. And if it approaches and passes that last triangle, it means you are now too close to fire your missile. Let's go ahead and find another target to lock up. Here we have an example. The target is 40 miles away, and we are closing on the target at 560 knots difference in speed. If the target was pulling away from us, that number would be negative. On the outer ring of the circle, on both our helmet and our HUD, we see an arrow. This arrow is the same thing as the arrow we would see on our attack radar. It is telling us that the aircraft is moving off in this direction. Because it is moving around the circle, it tells me that the target is in the middle of a turn, currently pointed away from us. If the arrow was down here, it would mean the target is coming towards us, off in that direction. Below your range and your closing speeds, you see a number and ACT. That means if we fired our A-18C at this moment, it would take this many seconds, 49 seconds, before the missile goes active. Let's get closer and I can demonstrate that. So you can see our ranging queue is ticking down, both on our HUD and in our helmet. A good rule of thumb is for every 1,000 feet in the air you are, that is a mile that you can shoot your missile. You are not strictly required to follow these firing cues. This is just what the plane calculates. So at 22,000 feet, I should be able to fire my missile about 22 miles. The higher and the faster you are, the more energy your missile can save and the more energy you impart to your missile, so the further you can fire it. Alright, I am within the firing zone. I now have an in-lar queue. If I fire my missile now, you will see the 20 active. We'll start counting down. Additionally, on our attack radar, we can see down here, we have a 11, 10, 9 TTA. That time to active that we see here will tell us how long until our missile becomes active and will guide itself, and we no longer need to keep the missile on our radar. Now the missile has gone active, we see a counter TTG, time to good. Down here we see, instead of a countdown time to active, it had set an A. That means the missile has gone active, right down there. So 1, it's not precisely accurate depending on the maneuvers, but it gives you a good idea on what your missile is doing. So the missile just hit. We saw the smoke. All of these tankers are invulnerable on the training server, so I'm able to take some shots for examples. Now that I'm past the second triangle, the in-lar is flashing, telling me that I have the highest probability of hit with my missile. You will also see down here it says 0 active. That means the missile will go active immediately when it comes off the rail when I fire it, meaning I no longer have to keep lock on it. I can break the lock, do my evasive, or target another aircraft without having to worry about guiding it. Because this counter is not always accurate as far as your time to good or your time to active, it is a good idea to keep in mind the shown time to active before you fire your missile. So you have an idea in the back of your mind how long it will take for the missile to go active. This is especially important if you're firing multiple missiles on multiple targets, because it will allow you to stop tracking the first target you fire on when it goes active, and then maintain your tracks on the other targets until those missiles go active. That covers all of the basic symbology and uses of your AIM-120s. Let's cover the Sidewinders. Let's see where something is. So your 9X Sidewinders have the ability to be fired utilizing a radar lock or an old-fashioned heat source lock. We will first demonstrate a heat source lock, so I will put my radar to standby. So my radar is no longer functioning. And you will see two concentric circles following your helmet. This is where your Sidewinder is looking for a heat source. You'll hear a steady hiss in the background, signifying it has not found a target. If I move my helmet over a heat source, you will hear a solid, steady tone. That means that is an eligible heat source to lock on. If I wanted to lock onto the heat source, I would put my cursor over it, hear the tone, and then press my cage uncage button to cage the missile to the target, to lock the target. Now you hear the tone has changed to a high-pitched whine. That tells me the Sidewinder has locked on a target, and I'm good to fire. A nice perk of the Sidewinders are that they're able to wind around to your sides. So let's go ahead and try that now. You see the same as our AIM-120s, that if it is out of the view of our helmet, the circle flashes. As soon as we can see it again, the circle becomes solid. So I'm going to look at the target, keep it off to my side, and fire. And now you see the Sidewinder has turned all the way over and is going for the target. This can be rather extreme with radar locks to assist its guidance, and you can fire on targets as far off to your sides as about here. Pretty much the entire limit of your radar cone. Something to note with Sidewinders, you generally only want to use them within 2 or 3 miles because they lose energy quickly, and outside of that range, they're fairly easy to dodge because of that energy loss. Let's go ahead and try a radar lock. Radar back to operational. I'll bring my radar down to about 10 miles. Alright, I have locked the target, and you see a similar HUD symbology and helmet symbology to their AIM-120Cs, because our plane is able to lock and keep track of the target and help provide us targeting information. The AIM-120C, you'll see a lot of similarities in this. You can even fire those a little bit off bore, but keep in mind they're not able to snake as much as a Sidewinder. So the Sidewinder has its lock with the radar, and as long as you hear that high-pitched tone, you're good to fire, and it will make its way over to the target. I will cover much more in-depth uses of the Sidewinders in the ACM tutorial video. That is generally how you'll be using your Sidewinders. The ACMs, air combat modes, are utilized when you are closer to a target and you won't have time to utilize your radar to make a lock. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock the target now. You can see, even without a radar lock, with our radar operational, if we look at the target, we can get the tone. If we don't want to lock on, we can hit our cage uncage to turn it off. Let's try one of those snaking shots now. So it fired from our right-hand side all the way over, and it's going to try and hit the target. Let's see how extreme we can make this. Remember, I'm only firing from a distance for these examples. You want to fire these when you're within 3 or so miles. So this is almost entirely 90 degrees off to our left. I will go ahead and fire, and you see that thing snakes its way all the way to the target. Our guns are similar, except you will see a large dotted circle, and this tells us that our guns will automatically lock onto any target within 10 miles that is within this circle. This funnel you see here is utilized for firing your guns without a radar lock. You will line each end of this funnel up with the wings of the aircraft you are trying to fire on. I'll put my radar to standby so it cannot get a lock, and I'll go demonstrate that on this tanker. The gun funnel will move. If you're pitching around, you're rolling, and that will give you an idea of where your bullets are going to travel. So because the target is so far away, I would use the small section of the funnel. If his wings lined up with either end of the funnel, it would mean I have a chance to hit him based on the ballistics. We're pretty far. Generally, you want to wait till you're within 1 mile at the very least. Generally getting as close as you can. So I'll wait till the wings are matching the funnel, and then shoot. Alright, now that the gun funnel has been demonstrated, I'll turn back around and demonstrate the radar lock. So our gun will lock the first target it sees within that circle within 10 miles. So I'll move the target within the circle, and it has locked it. Just like your regular radar, if you want to unlock the target, double tap your nose wheel steering button, but it will continuously try to search and lock for whatever it sees if you have your guns equipped. Here, we have our usual radar lock information, closure rates, distances, but now our gun funnel has turned into this circle with the dot in the center. To hit the target, all we need to do is move this center dot over the target. If the plane thinks we're able to hit it, it will tell us shoot. If it doesn't tell us shoot, you can use your best judgment and intuition. So all we'd have to do is move it over the target, just like that, and then fire. Let's go ahead and try and get close, and I'll demonstrate that. Here, once again, you can see the closure rate, so I'm closing at 240 knots. So all I need to do is put the circle over the target, and now we get our shoot cue. The plane will calculate that we can hit, give us the shoot, and we pull the trigger. The Sparrow 7M missiles we will not be covering. They are rather old technology and are a coin flip at best as far as hitting. They require you to guide the missile from launch all the way until impact, as opposed to the AIM-120Cs that will guide themselves after a certain period of time. When I cover the RWS tutorial, I may put in a little blurb about how to utilize the 7Ms, but if you ever have the option, always choose an AIM-120. The difference between the Cs and the Bs that you will find in the loadout screen: the C has smaller fins, which you can see in the picture on the loadout, or visually on the missile itself. It has less maneuverability, but a stronger engine and can reach out further distances. The Bs have larger fins, but weaker engines. These allow them to be more maneuverable, but not be utilized at a farther range. I find that for 95% of use cases, the AIM-120Cs do just fine. You can experiment and find your preference, but I would always have at least 2 AIM-120Cs on your cheeks if you ever decide to take Bs on your pylons. That covers all the basic missile symbology for your HUD and your helmet. Thanks for watching.